Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram. So we have seen in the 126th verse of the Vivekachudamani that the jiva is beginningless. The ignorance is, ajnana is beginningless. And as a result, from the ajnana, the jivahood ensues that we start thinking ourselves an individualized soul, which entails the jivahood, which is a superimposition, and it is beginningless. Now, if superimposition is beginningless, it should also have no end. If anything is anadi, it is bound to be ananta. Why? A thing which is beginningless, which is still existing, what it proves? That there is no transformation in it. Like the self. It is, it was, it will be. As there is no transformation, it is in the eternal present. So that proves which is beginningless. As it has no transformation, it is bound to be endless. But here we say that the ajnana is beginningless. But at the same time, it is mentioned that it ends. So the disciple, after hearing all this idea, all this concept of ignorance, which is beginningless, but which is end, which is going to end. So he has a doubt that how can it be? So jivahood too should be perpetual. That it has beginning and as it has no beginning, it should have no end. So it should be perpetual. And then the question comes, if ignorance is something perpetual, if ignorance is something which is not going to end, as it has no beginning, so from that we can conclude it is not going to end. And if it is not going to end, then where does the question of liberation comes? There cannot be any liberation. So this is the question which the disciple is going to ask in the verses 192 and 193. Which we are going from the 192nd verse, we are going to take up today the discussion on Vivekachudamani. So what the 92nd verse is saying? Shishya uvacha Brahmena api anyatha va astu jiva bhava paratmana tat upadhehe anaditvat na anade nasha ishyate. So Brahmena api anyatha va astu jiva bhava paratmana. So either through delusion or otherwise, Brahmena api anyatha va. Maybe because of delusion or otherwise, I don't know the reason, that we have attained the Jiva Bhava. The Supreme Paratmana, the Supreme Self, has assumed, because of ignorance or maybe some other reason, the state of Jivahood. It considers itself as Jiva. So that's what Shishya is saying, that Brahmena api anyatha. Maybe because of ignorance, or maybe of some other reason. Anyatha means some other reason. Jiva bhava paratmana va astu. The paratmana, the Supreme Self, assumes the state of jivahood. Tat upadhe anaditvat na anade nasha ishyate. Now as this jivahood is something, it is beginningless. This superimposition being without beginning. Tat upadhe anaditvat. This upadhi, that the self which is beyond all attributes, appears to be having attributes as the jiva. What are the attributes? Like as we get identified with the body, I say he's fat, he's lean, he's tall, he's short. When we get identified with the mind, he's intelligent, he's dull. So all these are the attributes. These attributes have been superimposed from when we don't know. So it is something beginningless. This superimposition being without beginning, tat upadhe anaditvat, cannot be supposed to have an end either. Na anade nasha ishyate. The thing which is anadi, there cannot be nasha, there cannot be end to it. So this is the doubt which the disciple is putting in front of his teacher. In the 193rd verse, what is being mentioned? Atah asya jiva bhava api nitya bhavati sansriti. So then, if there is no end, then this jiva bhava, this jivahood, this creatureliness, this is going to be nitya, eternal. And this will result in transmigration through eternity, sansriti. Sansriti means the flow. In the form of birth and death, this transmigration should continue forever. Na nivarteta tat moksha kathang me Sri Guru Vada. And if that is the case, that if there is no cessation, nivarteta, there is no cessation of this transmigration, then where is the question of attaining liberation? Tat moksha katham me Sri Guru Vada. O my teacher, Vada means speak out. Please speak, please say, please explain that how can there be liberation if this transmigration is going to be endless. So what's the sequence of argument? That if ignorance is beginningless, from which ensues the jivahood, that also is beginningless. If that be so, then this process of transmigration is going to be forever, as the thing which is beginningless is not supposed to end. And if the transmigration goes on forever, then where is the question of liberation? Liberation is nothing but the cessation of this process of transmigration. This birth and death, the cycle of birth and death, the cessation of that alone is moksha. And it is not going to stop. Then how can one be liberated? So that's the doubt which the disciple is putting forth to his teacher. So now the teacher, from the 194th verse to the 206th verse, will go on explaining this very intricate doubt, with subtle doubt, which this intelligent disciple has placed in front of the Guru. The student is intelligent enough to go to this, the subtleties of the idea of jivahood, and come out with this doubt that the thing which is beginningless, how can it end? So now let us go to the 194th verse, with which the teacher's explanation starts. Sri Guru Uvacha Samyak Prishtang Tvaya Vidvan Savdhanena Tat Srinu Pramaniki Na Bhavati Bhrantya Mohita Kalpana. So Sri Guru Uvacha, the teacher replied. What he replied? That he is first praising the disciple for asking such an intelligent question. So what he's saying? That, O learned man, and you have rightly questioned, Samyak Prishtang, that you have really questioned right. Who? Tvaya Vidvan, you being intelligent, you have questioned rightly. Samyak Prishtang, Prishtang means to ask. Samyak means correct, a very correct question you have asked. By whom? By the disciple Tvaya Vidwan, who is intelligent. So as you have asked this question, so now listen attentively. Savdhanena. Savdhan means with attention. Savdhanena tata srinu. So listen with full attention what I am going to say. Because it is something very subtle. To understand this, you have to be very attentive. So savdhanena tata srinu. Now what is saying? The imagination which has been conjured up by delusion. Bhrantya mohita kalpana can never be accepted as a fact. Pramaniki na bhavati. So this verse, the Guru is giving a very nice indication that yes, it is true. If anything is beginningless, it is bound to be endless. But this is something which pertains to something which has bhava, which is having some existence. And a thing which exists, if it is beginningless, is bound to be endless. But if something is not there, absence, abhava, like ignorance is the absence of knowledge. If something is abhava, that can be beginningless. But it need not be endless. With the dawn of knowledge, that beginningless ignorance can be eradicated, can be annihilated, killed. You may say, how? What you say? That does it make any sense? Let us just try to understand. Let us forget the examples which the scripture is going to give. Let us take a very common example which you all will understand. And then once we have a clear understanding, with the example of the present day, then we will resort to the examples which the scripture is giving, which Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya is giving, to explain this doubt to his disciple. So let us take this example. What's the example? You all will understand. That gravitation is. But there was the eternal ignorance of, beginningless ignorance of gravitation till Newton discovered the law of gravitation, existence of gravitation. Was it not beginningless? It was beginningless. That ignorance was there. The moment the gravitation was discovered, the ignorance was dispelled. There was an end to that ignorance. So what it speaks of, there was the abhava, there was the absence of the knowledge of gravitation. So the absence of anything can be beginningless, but it can end. So prak abhava, this term will come in the next few verses. So in the olden days, the idea of gravitation was not there. Shankaracharya is giving a very nice example. We will come to that, but let us just try to understand this example at the very beginning so that the subsequent verses becomes easy to understand. Suppose I create a pot. A potter makes a pot. Before the pot was made, the absence of pot was beginningless. There was no pot. From the beginningless. But the moment the pot was made, the absence of pot ends. Now the pot comes into existence. So if anything is absent, that can be beginningless, but it can end. But if something is bhava, something existing, that thing is beginningless, it cannot end. Like the Atman is existence. It was from the beginningless time. From when it is, we can never say that at certain time it started. It is beginningless. And it is existence. So it can never end. But if something is abhava, absent, the absence of something, that can be beginningless. But with the advent of that thing, the beginninglessness is over. So this is the subtle point. Let us understand at the very beginning that with the help of that example of the gravitation, the knowledge of gravitation was not there till Newton discovered gravitation. So the absence of the knowledge of gravitation. Gravitation is there, but I had no knowledge of it. The moment the knowledge came, the ignorance of gravitation, that ended. So that's the thing which here the Guru is trying to indicate. That anything other than ignorance, if it is beginningless, must be endless. And that is the self and self alone. But ignorance, though beginningless, has an end. Just as we try to understand with the help of this gravity. So now, with this understanding, that pramaniki na bhavati bhrantya mohita kalpana, that can never be accepted as pramaniki na bhavati. What? That the imagination which has been conjured up by delusion. The ignorance should be there. That is the avarana shakti, ignorance. And because of the ignorance, you may have some delusive knowledge. Like till the gravitation was not discovered, in Swamiji's complete works we find, people used to assume when they throw an object and the object comes back, in various assumptions they make. That there is a giant somewhere in the sky, whatever is thrown, he throws it back. So what has happened? Because of the absence of the knowledge of gravitation, we develop some imagination, kalpana, imagination. And that speaks of the this vikshepa. The kalpana speaks of the vikshepa. The ignorance finds expression as some deluded idea, concept. That some giant is sitting there throwing the things, whatever we throw, it throws back. So the delusion comes from ignorance. So this kalpana can vanish only when the true knowledge dawns in. So with this, the Guru starts his discussion. So this idea will help us to understand the subsequent verses as we take them up one by one. So the 195th verse, the first example which Shankaracharya is giving, very oft quoted example, we will find that what he's saying, Bhranting vinatu asangasya niskriyasya nirakritehe na ghateta artha sambandha nabhasa nilatadivat. So the Atman, now after saying that the ajnana, which is beginningless, can end, all the imagination which ensues from that ignorance, that also can end with the advent of knowledge. After saying that, now here we will find that Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya is giving an example. First what he is saying, Bhranting vina tu asangasya niskriyasya nirakritehe. The Atman, we have heard from the Shruti, is unattached. Asangasya. Nishkriyasya, it is actionless. Nirakrite, it is beyond all form, it is formless. We have heard that. But na ghateta artha sambandha nabhasa nilatadivat. So without delusion, there cannot be any connection of it with objects. It is asanga. How can there be any connection with the objects of the world? But because of ignorance, a connection appears. Though it is not there, it is apparent. And then the example which Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya is giving is really very interesting in those days. That the sky appears blue. Is it blue? The sky appears to be touching the horizon, as if it is like an inverted cauldron. Just like an inverted cauldron touching the horizon, and it is having color blue. Is it true? No. So all these attributes, the color, the blueness, a shape which is actually not there, the shape of a cauldron, something like a cauldron touching the horizon. Where there is no akriti, you are superimposing, we are superimposing akriti. Where there is no color, we are superimposing color. So that's the thing Shankaracharya is saying. The same way, because of ignorance, the Atman, which is Asanga, which can in no way touched by anything. That example which we give, when these examples will come again and again, that when I see a huge reservoir while passing through the desert, it is a mirage. Does this reservoir can drench even a single sand particle? No. So that's the idea of asanga. It cannot be touched in any way. It transcends the thing which has been superimposed. So it cannot touch it. Asangasya nishkriyasya is beyond all actions. The actions come once the self is superimposed as the body-mind complex. Nirakriti, all the akriti, the form, shape. This gold as such has no shape. But when I make ornaments out of it, it has a particular shape. That the shape is something, this nama rupa is superficial. In essence, it is gold. When I try to heat up a red hot iron with the fire, when I heat a iron with the fire, the iron becomes red hot, and the fire, which has no shape, assumes as if the shape of the iron, the red hot iron. If it is spherical, the fire appears to be spherical. If it is elongated, the fire appears to be cylindrical and elongated. But has the fire any shape? No. So it's like that the self is nirakriti, but it assumes the shape because of its superimposition. Just the way the sky, which is the first example that he's giving, the sky which is colorless, which has no shape, appears to have that blue color and appears to have a shape where the sky seems to be touching the horizon, just like an inverted cauldron. So that's the thing which we find even mentioned in the Shruti, that how we know that the self is something which is beyond all contamination. Nothing can touch it. Because the Shruti says so. That at the beginning, why the scriptures are needed? Because some knowledge is not perceptible just by the senses. Something beyond the senses is there. I have to go to a different level of awareness to relate to those scriptural truths. So for me, with faith at the beginning, I have to start with my belief, my faith in the scriptures. And we find that the scriptures are saying that we start with that. It's not that the faith alone is something to which we have to hold on, just as a belief. No. It will lead to the realization, but we have to start with that faith. So the Shruti, what it is saying, asanga hi ayam purusha, that this ultimate self is asanga. So we find this reference of this word asanga in the Shruti. So whenever any treatise is written, they always will give reference to the Shruti. So here also the Shruti, the reference for the Shruti is in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad we find it is mentioned, asanga hi ayam purusha. This ultimate reality, the supreme reality is asanga. Nishkalam, nishkriyam. These are the words which has been used in Shvetashvatara Upanishad. From there we find this word nishkriya. In Bhagavad Gita it is mentioned avyaktoyam, achintayam, avikaryoyam uchyate. So this is again the same idea. This is no akara behind all akriti. So this all from the scriptures we get this idea that the self is beyond all sorts of action, beyond all shape. It has no shape, and it is asanga. It cannot be in any way contaminated by being touched. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, সব কিছু এটো হয়ে গেছে কেবল ব্রহ্ম এটো হয়নি. That everything has been defiled, that Brahman alone can never be defiled. When hearing these words, Vidyasagar was impressed at how simply Sri Ramakrishna spoke this ultimate scriptural truth, the truth of the Shruti in a simple language. It cannot be defiled. That's the idea of asanga. Nothing can touch it. But it appears to be as if has been contaminated, touched. Just the way this Navhasa in the sky appears Nilata Adiva. The sky appears to be blue. Nilata Adi. Adi speaks of the shape of the sky, touching the horizons, etc. So this is mentioned here. So, but is it true? It's actually not true. So it is ever unattached, non-acting, like the sky, which being without form is wrongly said to be of blue color. So even as blueness is not true, so too are all these assumptions about the Atman caused by delusion are not true. They are not valid. So now the next 9 verses, this principle will be logically explained. So the 196th verse, what it is saying? Swasya drashtuhu nirgunasya akriyasya pratyak bodha ananda rupasya buddhe bhrantya praptah jiva bhavah na satyah moha apaye na asti avastu swabhavat. So this Atman, the drashta, the drashtu, behind all my actions, behind all my thoughts, there is a witness. When I think, I know I am thinking. When I am acting, I know I am acting. So there is an eternal drashta which is changeless. Now, I was a young boy, I am a middle-aged person, I will be growing old. Behind that, the I is something which is changeless. Do I ever feel that I have changed from as the I, the eternal witness, who is beyond all these transformations of the body-mind complex? That I used to think in a particular way as a child. As I grow up, as I become mature, my thought process change. But do I feel the one, the I, who is witnessing the thoughts as a child, who is witnessing the thoughts as an elderly person, is different? The witness is the same. It is I who was the same I, who was a small child. It is the same I who is a young man. It is the same I who is the middle-aged person. It is the same I who is growing old. So this drashta, that is being swasya drashtu nirgunasya akriyasya. It is not acting, it is just witnessing, it is drashta. Nirguna, it is beyond in all qualities, it is actionless. And it is realized as knowledge and bliss absolute. It is the knowledge that the ultimate self, which is the witness, is after all the sakshi. All the knowledge as if belongs to him, that he being the witness is seeing everything. So he is the knowledge and he is the all bliss. Because you'll find that the self, the ultimate amness, is as such not affected by the happenings of life. It is just the witness. The joys it is witnessing, the sorrows it is witnessing, as the witness it is unaffected. So it transcends the joys and sorrows as the witness. So it is the ever blissful knowledge existence. So when you look within, so that's the pratyak, that's the word pratyak bodha. When you look within, you see that the self, the drashta, is ananda rupasya. It is the ever blissful self residing there. The jivahut of the Atman is an imagination by delusion of buddhi and is not true. That's being mentioned in the second line. Bhrantya prapta jiva bhava na satya. Moho apaye na asti avastu swabhavat. So though it is beginningless, so this specifically the Guru is mentioning, that though it is beginningless, it do come to an end because it is a vastu. As such, it is not a particular thing which exists. It is a vastu. It has no existence. Avastu swabhavat, being of the nature of, what you say, this untruth. It is not avastu, it is untruth. So though it is beginningless, it is bound to end with the evolution, with the emergence of the knowledge. When the jnana comes, it is bound to fall off. So this Atma appears as this Jiva because of this Bhranti, Bhrantya Prapta Jiva Bhava, because of delusion. But that is not truth, is na satya. Moho apaya, when the delusion falls off. Apaya means when it falls off. Apaya means apa, that like in all the language, the word is there, apaharana. When you seize it, that is what is meant by apaye. When it ceases, moho ceases. Na asti avastu swa, its existence ceases. Because it is after all avastu. It is not something which exists. It is the absence of existence. That absence of knowledge is the ignorance. So that absence is something which can be beginningless, but it can end. As to the examples which Shankaracharya will give in the succeeding verse, and we just now we were explaining with the help of gravity, that the absence of the knowledge of gravity is beginningless, but the moment the gravitation is discovered, the absence of the knowledge of ignorance, of knowledge of gravitation, that ends. Now you know that there is something called gravitation. So similarly, moha apai, the moment the delusion falls off, then this bhranti, this falls off. How this moha can fall off? By the destruction of ajnana, by the cessation of ignorance. How? By the realization of the truth, arrived by the study of the Shruti. From the scriptures I know the truth. And then by listening to the Upadesha of the Acharya. Acharya is a very important word. The one who has not only read the scriptures, who lives the life as per the dictums of the scripture. And that way, by leading the life, by internalizing the values which has been spoken of in the scriptures, he has gone to realization. He is speaking from realization. So not only just the reading the knowing the Shruti. After knowing, I have to listen to the Adesha, the Upadesha of the Acharya. This speaks of Sravana and Manana. I have heard the scripture, but it doesn't clarify my doubts, so I have to go and sit near the teacher, ask him questions, and from his Upadesha, my doubt starts getting cleared. So Sravana followed by Manana. And then only gradually the conviction comes about the self, which being superimposed is appearing as this individualized self, soul. So when the truth is realized, the ajnana is destroyed and the delusion born of it also is destroyed. So upon the annihilation of this moha, the imagined objects which are superimposed, they also cease to appear. What are the things superimposed? The moment, as that example which we give again and again, the self gets superimposed as the buddhi and in turn as the jiva, as the individualized self. Then the question of what you say is all the birth and death, the question of all the attributes related to the body, related to the mind, they all come to the existence. The moment the moha falls off, I again get established in the self, in my real nature of the self, and the ignorance which was beginningless, that falls off. So that's the thing which is being indicated in the 196th verse. So these all verses is an answer, trying to answer the question that something which is beginningless, how can it end? That you told ajnana is beginningless, jivahood is beginning, and as ajnana is beginningless, jivahood is beginningless. So in how can it end? So here Guru is saying that anything which has substance, if it is beginningless, of course it cannot end. But if something is not a substance, is not an existence, it is just the absence of the existence, then of course it can end. So with the dawn of knowledge, this ignorance ends. And then when it ends, when I get established in the self, then this process of transmigration is also going to stop. So that's how all the attributes which has been superimposed on the self, leading to the individualized soul, the jivahood, the creatureliness, that also falls off, rendering us moksha or liberation. So, for one example which we saw that Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya gave, what's that? That though the sky is asanga, it's not touched by, as such, any of the attributes. It is akrit, it has no shape, it has no color. But because of ignorance, we find that it has a shape, it has a color. So now another example Shankaracharya is giving. So what is he saying? This is a very common example which we cite again and again. Yavat bhrantihi, the 197th verse. Yavat bhrantihi tavat eva asya satta mithya jnana ujrimbhitasya pramadat rajjang sarpah bhranti kalinah eva bhrantehe nashe naiva sarpa api tadvat. So this common example of the snake and the rope. The snake which is superimposed upon the rope. So yavat bhranti tavat eva asya satya. That as long as the ignorance is there, the thing which has been superimposed, it appears to exist. Its satta is there. That the jivahood persists as long as there is delusion, as it is born of that delusion, it is born of that mithya jnana, that yavat bhranti tavat eva asya satta mithya jnana ujrimbhitasya. It has arisen, ujrimbhitasya has arisen from that pramada, from that mithya jnana. That as long as this delusion exists, so till then it has a satta. That when I see the snake in the rope, as long as the ignorance is there, the snake do have an existence for me. Rajjang sarpa bhranti kalina eva bhrantehe nashe naiva sarpa api tatvat. But the moment that delusion falls off, I don't see the snake anymore. I see the rope and rope alone. So, though that ignorance was as if beginningless, from where it was there, I don't know. It was there. When I came and suddenly in the twilight hours saw that snake, for me, that snake was beginningless. Though when I came, I started seeing the snake. But for me, what's the idea? The snake is there even before I came. It was there, isn't it? When I'm seeing the snake, I don't think just I came and the snake suddenly has evolved. What I think, that when I come, I see the snake was there even before I came. It was there. So that way it is beginningless. But is its existence going to be endless? No. The moment I just throw the light on it and I see that it is actually the rope, the real jnana, the knowledge comes, and the snake which I was deluding, it vanishes. So that's the idea. So when we give this example of snake and rope, that immediately we may think that yes, the ignorance actually has started. How can it be beginningless? When I came, I saw the snake in the rope. That's time when the snake came into existence. But it is not the truth. Does anyone feel that way? When I suddenly see a snake in the rope, what's the idea? The snake was there. It was there from when I don't know. I came, I am seeing the snake as the snake. So that's how it is beginningless. Ajnana is beginningless. That when I come, it was there. And now, so when this ignorance falls off, now I see its real nature. So though it is beginningless, it has an end. So that's the example again Shankaracharya is giving. So these examples are common, but the various perspectives through which we see it, the more and more the doubts gets clarified. That's the thing. That Sharpa and Rajju, this we are hearing. We think, oh, again and again we are saying the same thing. But no, here the subtle point is that when I start getting deluded, it's not that's the time we are started getting deluded. We are having the idea that the snake was there even before I came here. It is that way beginningless. But the moment the knowledge dawns, it ends. So, similarly, the serpent in the rope exists only during the existence of the delusion. So, as long as I'm deluded, it's existing. But when this delusion is destroyed, there is no serpent. So too here, so too in the case of the self. The self appears as the jiva because of the ignorance. So the third example, the next example is given in the 199th verse. So we will read this 198 and the 199th verse. So Guru provides the answer to that. The Guru has felt that the answer, the doubt is yet to be clear. Though he has spoken of the idea behind the cessation of ignorance, but most probably the disciple, because the idea is very subtle, most probably has not understood it. So to clarify the doubt, he is giving few more examples in the 198th and in the 199th verse. What he is saying? Anaditvam avidyaya karyasya api tatha ishyate utpannayang tu vidyayam avidyakam anadi api. The avidya and its effects are likewise considered as beginningless. But with the rise of vidya, with the rise of knowledge, the entire effect of avidya, even though beginningless, are destroyed, together with their root. With it is totally annihilated. So, and then the example is giving bodhe swapnavat sarvang sahamulang vinashyati. So when I was dreaming, of course the dream started at a particular point of time, but when I am dreaming, can I ever find out when the dream started? Only when I wake up I know that yes, I went to sleep. It must be after that the dream has started. But why we are saying the dream is beginningless? That when I am dreaming, at that time I never have the idea that after I went to sleep, when this dream state, I am in the dream state and now I have started dreaming. At that time that is real. The dream is real, and from when it started I have no idea. That is the only reality for me. The reality of the wakeful state is non-existent for me at that time. So that way the swapna is beginningless. That's bodhe swapnavat sarva sahamulang. But when you wake up, then I know that it was a dream. It's over. So then again the next line is very important. Anadi api idam no nityam prak abhava. This prak abhava word is very important. Ivas futam. Prak abhava. That ignorance is not any substance. It doesn't have an entity of its own. It is the absence of the entity. As we were saying, that how anything beginningless can end? Anything which is not present, like prak abhava, that a pot, when the potter makes the pot, before the pot comes into existence, the absence of the pot is beginningless. But the moment pot comes into existence, this abhava is now vanished. So this prak abhava indicates that anything which is absent, that can be beginningless. But the dawn of the knowledge, but with the dawn of the particular thing, the absence is over. So this prak abhava, just anadi api idam, no nityam, prak abhava, it is clear that the phenomenal universe, even though without beginning, is not eternal like previous non-existence. Which the thing which is non-existent, the moment it becomes existence, though it was beginningless, it's do have an end. So again and again we will say that example, that this, let us try to again recapitulate this idea. What was the doubt of the student? That ignorance is beginningless. Anything which is beginningless is bound to be endless. Why? Because beginningless means it has no change. That's why it is still existing. If there was change, then it cannot continue to exist. So if any substance is beginningless, it is bound to be endless. Now the scriptures say Ajnana is beginningless. Then it is bound to be endless. If that's the truth, then because of ignorance, I feel myself as an individual soul with all these attributes. And I go through the process of transmigration. Then if this is beginningless, this is not going to end. So here, that's the doubt which the student has kept in front of his teacher. And the teacher answer, the basic answer is, if anything has a substance which has a beginning, it of course is not going to end. And that's what the self is. Self is an existence which has no beginning, so it is not going to end. It is Trikal Avadita Satya. But ignorance is the absence of knowledge. It is beginningless. But with the dawn of knowledge, it is going to end. And to understand that example with which we started, that before the discovery of gravitation, the absence of the knowledge of gravitation was beginningless. And all the false assumptions were also beginningless. Like as we told that previously, before the discovery of this gravitation, what some of the cultures used to think, that when I throw something, there is a giant sitting on the sky who throws back everything what I throw up. So the delusion, this delusive knowledge, from where it came? From the ignorance, which is beginningless. But moment the Newton discovered gravitation, immediately that the ignorance which was beginningless, that disappeared. I know that it is because of gravitation the object falls. So if the absence of anything can be beginningless, but it is going to end. So similarly, the absence of the knowledge of the self, though it is beginningless, with the dawn of knowledge, it is going to end. So that's the idea of prak abhava, which has been spoken of in the 199th verse. So that thus, though beginningless, our creatureliness, that I am a creature, I am not this eternal self. I feel that I am just this individualized self which is going through the process of transmigration. This never comes to end as long as we are in ignorance. But the moment the knowledge dawns in, it vanishes. So this idea is continued again in the verse number 200 and verse number 201. So what they are saying, anade api vidhvangsah prak abhavasya vikshitah yat buddhi upadhi sambandhat parikalpitam atmani. This is the 200th verse. And the 201st verse is jivatvang tu tatah anya tu swarupena vilakshana sambandha tu atmana buddhya mithya jnana purah saraha. So the previous non-existence, even though beginningless, is observed to have an end. So anadi api vidhvangsa prak abhavasya vikshita. Similarly, the jivahood is imagined to be in the Atman through its relationship with superimposed attributes, such as the buddhi. Yat buddhi upadhi. So buddhi is their attribute on which the self is superimposed. So yat buddhi upadhi sambandhat parikalpitam atmani. The self is imagined as the buddhi because of this ignorance, because of the absence of the knowledge of the self. Jivatvam tu tatah anya. So similarly, this jivatva, this creatureliness, this individualized self is what actually what it is, that This Jivahood is imagined to be the Atman through its relationship with superimposed attributes, such as the Buddhi. So whereas the Atman is essentially different from it, that actually this Atman is not the Jiva, is not this individual soul. It appears to be so. So whereas the Atman is essentially different, Jivatvantu tata anya swarupena vilakshana. It is not the same thing which I am seeing it as. It is something different from that. So this relationship between the Atman and Buddhi is due to the false knowledge. Sambandha to Atmana Buddhya Mithya Jnana Purasya is because of this false knowledge. Like the thing which can never be related appears to be related. Sambandha to Atmana. This Buddhi is something inert. The self is the intelligent principle. These opposite characteristics seems to be conjoined together because of ignorance. So that's the thing which is being indicated in the 200 and the 201st verse. So this is only that how, now the question comes, how to get rid of this ignorance. So Shruti has said that self is asanga. Because of ignorance, I see it as the individualized self. And the scripture again says that with the dawn of knowledge, this mithya jnana ends, and then the process of transmigration ends. I become the self. But the question is how that knowledge can come in, how that knowledge dawns in. So here is the stress of realization. That after all this intellectual discussion is to have some intellectual conviction. So to get rid of the doubt. But after that nididhyasana, that sravana manana should lead to nididhyasana. Once I have an intellectual conviction, I have to contemplate on it till it takes me to the realization, where I realize the oneness of the Atman and Brahman. This Atman merges in the Brahman. That alone can take me beyond all doubt. That's the real knowledge. So after speaking of all these ideas, in the 202nd verse, the Guru is speaking of the need for realization, without which this knowledge is just a mere intellectual jargon. So what he's saying, vinivritti bhavet tasya samyak jnanena na anyatha. Samyak jnana, through realization, through the complete knowledge. Vinivritti. See, nivritti itself means cessation. Before that, the prefix vi has been used. Whenever the prefix vi is used, it is used in the sense of vishesha. Vishesha jnana, vijnana. Jnana means knowledge. But that complete knowledge, vishesha jnana, is vijnana. Similarly, nivritti means cessation. But the cessation in totality, to explain that vi prefix has been used. Vinivritti. So this ignorance in totality, without any trace of ignorance, the total ignorance falls off. That's what is used by meant by the word vinivritti, bhavet tasya. This ignorance totally is eradicated when samyak jnanena, through the dawn of that knowledge, na anyatha, not by any other means. Brahmatma aikwatya vijnana. And what is that knowledge? That samyak jnana is? That is Brahma and Atma is the eka, same. That what I am seeing as this individualized self, that merges in the Brahman, in Samadhi, leading me to that realization, this Atman is one with Brahman. What is the difference between Atma and Brahma? Brahma came from Bri Dhatu. That when I see the self as localized within the body-mind complex, it is Atman. The same self in Samadhi goes beyond that localization. It becomes something non-local. I exist without the time-space causation. Beyond that, that's why it's called Brihat. It is something which is no more localized, beyond all localization. So this self merges in the Brahman. And then that real knowledge dawns in. So, Brahmatma Aikvatva Vijnanam Samyak Jnanam Srutimatam. So the scriptures also have said that. So that's the beauty of the scriptures. The beauty of the Veda that Swamiji is saying. What? That Veda is the scripture which never says that you have to bound yourself, obey the scriptures, believe the scriptures and there it ends. No. What the scriptures, the Vedas says, that you have to transcend the Vedas. Here the path is being shown. Follow this path and transcend the Shruti. Go beyond these words. Go to the realization. So that's the idea is being indicated. When you go to that realization, then that real knowledge dawns. And when the real knowledge dawns, the absence of the knowledge which was beginningless, leading to this jivahood which was beginningless, comes to cessation. It comes to end. So the cessation of that superimposition takes place through perfect knowledge. As says that vinivritti bhavetyasya samyak jnanena na anyataram, by any other means. So this perfect knowledge, according to the Shrutis, is samyak jnanam srute matam. What it is? Brahma Atma Aikvatva Vijnana. What is that knowledge? What is that thing Shruti speaks of? It speaks of the identity of the individual self with the Paramatman. This Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, all this speaks of that I am that absolute reality. When all the attributes falls off, when all the so-called upadhis, the attributes falls off, and the self bereft of all the attributes. That's what we are doing in Vivekachudamani, one by one, getting rid of the Panchakosha, these layers of ignorance, 5 layers of ignorance, one by one. I am trying to get rid of it. So then what remains? Is that lead to nothingness? No. It establishes you in the real self, which is beyond all these attributes, which is beyond all locality, which is beyond the time-space causation, which is Brahman. So the Atman is Brahman. And then the ignorance falls off, the jivahood ceases, and we become one with Brahman, which speaks of the liberation, which speaks of the moksha, as has been spoken of in the very 192nd and 193rd verse as doubt, that how can moksha be? If ignorance is beginningless, it is bound to be endless, and there cannot be moksha. So here teacher is saying, at last, the thing which is absent, that can be beginningless, but it do have an end. And that's how the ignorance, which was the absence of knowledge, that do come to an end with the dawn of knowledge through the realization of Brahma, Atma Brahma Ekatva. This Brahmatma Ekatva. This falls off, taking you to that realization, and then the ignorance vanishes and you get established in Brahman. The transmigration stops, and that enters in liberation. So this we will find very nicely that the scriptures, the biggest problem that Swamiji used to say, a very interesting thing, that what is the problem of the rishis? What was the problem? That they have realized something, but they didn't have sufficient vocabulary to express what they have realized. And Swamiji is giving a very nice example. Suppose a small child is yet to develop language, and you have given him a very nice chocolate, a yummy chocolate. He eats the chocolate, and you ask how it is. He simply babbles. He will make so much expression, but no meaningful word comes because he is yet to develop vocabulary. So he's saying the Rishi's condition is something like that. They have realized the truth, but to express something becomes so difficult that they don't find sufficient vocabulary to express it. And that's how we find all these verses is trying to explain something which cannot be explained through words. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, when the young disciples of Ramakrishna, they were asking Ramakrishna, please explain that as your mind rises gradually to the state of samadhi, what are the various gradations of experiences you go through? Though Ramakrishna starts, after some time he finds that he cannot express. he is saying to the young disciples that I try my best to explain, but my mother, the divine mother, the ultimate spiritual reality, whom Sri Ramakrishna saw as the divine mother, he is saying the divine mother as if is throttling my voice, is not allowing me to speak, because it cannot be spoken. It's so difficult to express something which is beyond words. Just the way the mother who has a young lady who has given birth to a child has become the mother, and someone else who is yet to become the mother asks her that what that love you feel for the child is. She knows, she feels it from the bottom of her heart, but she doesn't have any language to explain it. What can she say? That you become the mother, then only you will understand. I cannot explain. So that's what the condition of the scripture is here. It's trying its best out of unconditional love for the humanity. It is trying to express, but it becomes so difficult. But still we will find the examples they have resorted to is really something which are very intelligent. Very nicely, through this subtle discussion, they are trying to bring this point at home, that anything which is abhava, is absent, that can be beginningless, but that do have an end. But anything which has an existence, which is a substance, if it is beginningless, it cannot end. So that speaks of the Atman and the ignorance. Atman is the only existence, which is beginningless, so there is no question of end. It is Anadi Ananta. Ajnana is abhava, is the absence of the knowledge of Atman. So at is abhava, as it is an absence of something, though it is beginningless, it is going to end. So there is no duality. So there is no question of duality of Atman and ignorance as two things existing parallelly. There is only one, the Brahman and Brahmanaram. That is Ekam Eva Advityam. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskars.